Hello ladies and welcome to our Bible study of 1st Kings, and we are in the final chapter of this book, chapter 22, and then we are done. So exciting! It has been a wild ride. I've been saying this before, I feel like this book, 1st Kings, is incredibly underrated. I really do. There are so many gems in here no one seems to talk about that people I listen to, so I've been really excited to study this, and I hope if you've been along with me on the journey that you're finding value in this too. And thank you to those of you who've been sharing your takeaways and helping us learn together. I really greatly appreciate you. So without further ado, let's see what chapter 22 has in store for us. And they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. And it came to pass in the 3rd year that Jehoshaphat the king of Judah came down to the king of Israel. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, Know ye that Ramoth in Gilead is ours, and we be still, and take it not out of the hand of King Syria? And he said unto Jehoshaphat, Wilt thou go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as thou art, my people as thy people, my horses as thy horses. We ended with Elijah telling Ahab the judgment that was going to come upon him, but because Ahab repented, God said it wouldn't happen in his lifetime. So we're now starting to see Ahab's last days here. So there was no war for 3 years, and Jehoshaphat was king of Judah. He was the godly king. He came to visit Ahab, and Ahab has proposed a joint military campaign to retake the Israelite city of Ramoth Gilead from the Arameans. So and Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Israel, Inquire, I pray thee, at the word of the Lord today. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, Go up, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of the Lord besides, that we might inquire of him? So Jehoshaphat agreed to fight with Ahab as one army, but there was one condition. He wanted to check on the Lord's will. We love that. We love that. Checking in with God. Is this what you want? And this shows a huge contrast between Jehoshaphat and Ahab. I've never heard Ahab do that ever. He's never checked in with God to see whether he should do something. Right, so then they called up 400 prophets, and these are the false prophets, because this is Ahab's prophets, and we know what's going on there. So 400 of his false lying prophets came along, and so we can see that although Ahab repented at the end of chapter 21, his heart hasn't changed. He hasn't reformed. Because we know that these prophets are going to say anything that Ahab wanted them to say. It's all lies. And these false prophets said, yeah, sure, no problem, you're going to win. But fortunately Jehoshaphat is a smarty pants, and he said, can we ask someone else? And also, in the past when they've gone to God's prophets, it's usually just one prophet. You don't need 400 of them. It's like what we saw in chapter 18 with the big face down between the false gods and the one true God. They're false gods. They needed over 900 prophets, and it still wasn't enough. So just because they've got large numbers, it doesn't mean that they are the truth, or that their God is the true God. So Jehoshaphat is smart, and he said, yeah, this doesn't feel right. He wants a second opinion of like a proper prophet. Oh, say that 3 times really fast. Proper prophet. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, There is yet one man, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of the Lord. But I hate him, for he doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. Oh, he's such a baby. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. Oh, Ahab, you're such a child. I was like, I don't like him. He never says nice things about me. Oh my god, okay. So clearly he didn't want to hear the truth. And that is something we see all the time. The truth hurts, but it heals. People love lies because it makes them feel better, right? You start telling people the truth and they get offended and they can't handle it and they get all upset. You see it all the time. And they are just like Ahab. I'm sure we can all be like that sometimes. I'm not saying that, we're any better, because we are human and we don't like hearing the truth either when it hurts. But that doesn't mean that you can't listen to it. If it's true, you've got to take it because it's the truth. Why would you want to just hear lies just because it makes you feel better? Because it's a lie. It seems obvious, but there are some people that are so in their flesh that they can't handle the truth. And the truth is hard to hear sometimes, especially when it's not good news. But it's better to know the truth than to live in a lie. So yeah, he doesn't like this prophet because he doesn't tell him nice things. Then the king of Israel called an officer and said, "Hasten hither Micaiah the son of Imlah." And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king of Judah sat each on his throne, having put on their robes, in a void place in the entrance of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zechariah the son of Kenana made him horns of iron, and he said, "Thus saith the Lord, with these shalt thou push the Syrians until thou have consumed them." And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, "Go up to Ramoth Gilead to prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the king's hand." So Jehoshaphat rebuked Ahab for that kind of hatred. He said, let not the king say so. And so Ahab then called for Micaiah. And as they were waiting for Micaiah to arrive, prophets were all gathered here again, saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to win. Oh, it's going to be amazeballs." And they were like, yeah. So we've got all the fake prophets still going on their lies. And the messenger that was gone to call Micaiah spoke unto him, saying, "Behold now, the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth. Let thy word, I pray thee, be the word of one of them, and speak that which is good." And Micaiah said, "As the Lord liveth, what the Lord saith unto me, that will I speak." So he came to the king, and the king said unto him, "Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear?" And he answered him, "Go and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king." And the king said unto him, "How many times shall I adjure thee that thou tell me nothing but that which is true of the name of the Lord?" So before Micaiah came into the king's presence, someone had told him, don't disagree with the other prophets. Right here. And so unfortunately, when he appeared before Ahab, he told the king what he wanted to hear. That, yeah, go there and you're going to win. But Ahab recognized that he was being sarcastic, and so this time he insisted on the truth. Okay, so finally Ahab wants to hear the truth. Let's see if he can handle it. And he said, "I saw all Israel scattered upon the hills, as sheep that have not a shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master, let them return every man to his house in peace." And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, "Did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil?" And he said, "Hear thou before the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, Who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. And there came forth a spirit, and stood before the Lord, and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. Ooh. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. Whoa, okay, so God's prophet Micaiah is saying Israel was like a sheep without a shepherd. Their king was a failure, and God was about to take care of this. And we even got a glimpse into the heavenly throne room to see how God is going to bring about Ahab's downfall. Like, that's quite exciting. And every detail was given to Ahab about what God was going to do. He explained clearly what the plan was, and even said a lying spirit volunteered to lead King Ahab astray, and he was going to do that through the prophets. A lying spirit. And so you think these are all random coincidences, right? We think, oh, why would someone lie? Why would someone mislead someone into doing this? This is actually God's hand at work. God said what the judgment would be. And he said, I'm going to make him go into this war, and I'm going to do that through these means. We are all just vessels. So, lies came through the prophets. God didn't lie. He just permitted this lying spirit to accomplish his purposes. And God allowed Micaiah to reveal to Ahab that he was actually being lied to. He's like, look, your prophets are lying to you. He was being given that divine truth, but it didn't seem to matter. But Zedekiah the son of Kenana went near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said, Which way went the Spirit of the Lord from me to speak unto thee? And Micaiah said, Behold, thou shalt see in that day when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself. And the king of Israel said, Take Micaiah and carry him back to Ammon, the governor of the city, and Joash, the king's son. And say, Thus saith the king, Put this fellow in the prison and feed him with bread of affliction, with water of affliction, until I come in peace. And Micaiah said, If thou return at all in peace, the Lord hath not spoken by me. Oh yeah. And he said, Hearken, O people, every one of you. So, like most prophets seem to be treated, he was treated really violently for speaking the truth. Anyone else relate to that one? When you tell unbelievers, or even believers, the truth, they can get quite aggressive. They don't like hearing it. And so he had him thrown in prison until he returned. But Micaiah said the last word. He said, yeah, I'm not going to be coming back, mate. Just totally. Okay. So he had the last word there. And so the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle. But put thou on thy robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. But the king of Syria commanded his 32 captains that had rule over his chariots, saying, Fight neither with small nor great, save only with the king of Israel. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, Surely it is the king of Israel. And they turned aside to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture, and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Wherefore he sent unto the driver of his chariot, Turn thine hand, and carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. So Ahab had been warned that this battle is not going to go down well for him, but he went and did it anyway. He tried to be clever and disguise himself so that the enemy wouldn't recognize him, but you can't hide from divine judgment. Can't hide from God. And he was struck through the joints of his armour. And what are the chances of that? God is the chance of that. He made that impossible shot happen. And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up in his chariot against the Syrians, and died at even, and the blood ran out of the wound into the midst of the chariot. And there went a proclamation throughout the host, but about the going down of the sun, saying, every man to his city, and every man to his own country. So the king died, and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And one washed the chariot in the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood, and they washed his armour, according unto the word of the Lord which he spake. Fair point. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab, and all that he did, and the ivory house which he made, and all the cities that he built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his stead. Okay. So, as prophesied, Ahab died later that day, and the army scattered. The king's body was taken to Samaria and buried, and the dogs licked up his blood, and that's what God said would happen. And Ahaziah took over the throne. And Jehoshaphat the son of Asa began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi, and he walked in all the ways of Asa his father, and turned not aside from it, doing that which was right in the eyes of the Lord. I love to hear it. Nevertheless, the high places were not taken away. For the people offered and burnt incense yet in high places. So those are the temples of the false gods. You really should have got rid of them. And Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, and his might that he showed, and how he warred, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the king of Judah? And the remnant of the Sodomites which remained in the days of his father Asa, as he took out of the land. There was then no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they went not, for the ships were broken at Ezion-Geber. Then said Ahaziah the son of Ahab unto Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with thy servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat would not. And Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David his father. And Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. So we've got a few of the kings who were good, and Jehoshaphat was one of them. Unfortunately, because he aligned with Ahab, that kind of made things go a bit downhill. Because there was worshipping of false gods still, and so he was rebuked by the Lord. It goes to show how one rotten apple can affect the whole bunch. You can be good, but if you're surrounded by toxicity, it can ruin you too. So Jehoshaphat was a good king, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. But because he had joined forces with Ahab, who had a very toxic reign, he was rebuked by God, and he died as well, and it was replaced by Jehoram. Ahaziah the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria the 17th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 2 years over Israel. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the way of his father, and the way of his mother, and the way Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. For he served Baal and worshipped him, and provoked to anger the Lord God of Israel, according to all that his father had done. So Ahab's oldest son didn't have a long reign, because he was also evil and did what his parents did. Do we find out what happened to Micaiah? Did he get released from prison? Does that happen in the next book? I'm curious. I want to know what happens. Is he alright? Does he get let out? Presume so, because Ahab didn't come back for him like he said he would. So yeah, Ahaziah, who was Ahab's son, had learnt from his parents and was also worshipping Baal and false gods. Ooh. So yeah, that's that. Ooh, I'm so happy when we get to the end of a book. It was overwhelming. So we've got like the kings. It could be a little bit, sad, because so many of them were just so bad. But there were a few good ones in there. And there were some times when God's grace really did shine through, and he showed grace to them even when like they really didn't deserve it. So in spite of the sins of the people, the Lord was committed to filling his kingdom purposes. Which I'm sure will continue in the next book, and I cannot wait to dive straight into Kings 2, and we'll see what happens next. So thank you so much for joining me in this book. I hope you enjoyed it and you found value in it, and maybe learnt something, or it just helped keep you on a schedule, because we are meant to read the word every day, and it can be tricky to do that if we don't make time for it. We have to make time for it. So it's part of my morning routine to read a chapter a day, which obviously, as you know, I'm putting on here for you. So if you're joining me, then at least you know you're getting your daily bread, you're getting your word in every day. Whether you agree with me or not, you know, that's completely up to you. I'm just reading the word, giving you my interpretation and my understanding, but obviously reflect on it yourself too. Make sure you study for yourself, and don't ever take what anyone says as gospel aside from the word itself. So if you don't understand something, or you think I'm wrong about something, pray on it. Let me know as well, because I'm obviously still studying. I don't want to get anything wrong either. So it's important to pray and study and make sure that we are in the truth, being led by the Holy Spirit. So it has been a journey. I love taking this time just to reflect a little bit on how far we've come. I've had King Solomon. And here I am. Oh, we've been through a journey. Queen of Sheba rocks up. Here's Solomon's wisdom. Got Jeroboam, Rehoboam. And then we've got the split, and oh, it's just so much went down. So yeah, okay. That's enough chat. Join me tomorrow for the second book of Kings, and we'll see what other adventures happen along the way as well. Okay, so as always, please leave any comments that you have in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. And join me tomorrow for the new book. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you then. Bye.